The Nintendo Switch 2 announcement takes another turn, at least in the United States. So we will go over that. We have more information about why they went with an LCD screen over an OLED screen, some information on the file size of Nintendo Switch 2 games. I think that's kind of a positive thing here that we will take a look at. We have information on Xbox Game Pass, how much money it's making. It is doing pretty well. The Oblivion remake looks like it's coming soon. There's a lot of rumors going out there that this could be announced at any point. So we will take a look at that, plus some other things to go over in the news. But before we continue, if you are new here, you've been watching for a while, you are not subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe button to help this channel grow. I make daily gaming news videos, 8 a.m. every day, where you get caught up on everything that's happening in the news. Also do discussion videos and just other things on the channel related to gaming. So if you like that type of content, hit the subscribe button. But for now, let's jump into it. All right, we're going to start with the Nintendo Switch 2 today because it is obviously the biggest thing happening right now in the games industry. And the big thing that took over all the headlines after the Nintendo Switch 2 was announced was simply the pricing of the console and the pricing of the games. Now, in my opinion, the pricing of the console isn't that terrible, depending on where you're buying it from. But if we're focusing on the US, it's higher than I expected, but it's not so much higher that I think it's going to have a big effect on the launch. I still think this thing is going to sell out. And if you want to get your pre-order in, you're going to have to be on top of it. In other places like Canada, it's high. In Australia, it's high. In Japan, it's over $100 cheaper than in the US, and then even more in other parts of the world. Is cheaper in the UK as well. So the pricing is all over the place. The video game pricing has been a bigger topic of discussion, but if you are looking to get into the Nintendo Switch 2 and pre-order it next week and you live in the United States, as of right now, it is not happening. They came out with a new statement, and the discussion around tariffs and Donald Trump's tariffs and how this is going to affect the gaming industry, electronics, all of these things has been going around on social media. It is going to have an effect on pricing, whether people want to accept this or not. The tariffs will have an effect on it. We're kind of already seeing that play into stuff, but Nintendo came out and directly said that they are now delaying the pre-orders in the US because of the tariffs that have been implemented. Here is what they say. This is pretty interesting. It says here, pre-orders for Nintendo Switch 2 in the US will not start April 9th, 2025. In order to assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions, Nintendo will update timing at a later date. The launch date of June 5th, 2025 is unchanged. It says here on Wednesday, he introduced blanket 10% tariffs on all imports, with countries like China and Japan, Trump calling the worst offenders, getting larger tariffs of 54% and 24% respectively. And a report from the Financial Times last month suggested that Nintendo had already been shifting production away from China since Trump's first administration stated its intent to upend global trading, noting that more than half of the hardware Nintendo imports into the US comes from Vietnam and Cambodia. And the tariffs imposed by Trump on Wednesday, which he says will go into effect on April 9th, include 46% tariffs on Vietnam and 49% tariffs on Cambodia. So, I mean, the data is out there. The information is out there. And we can make all of the different arguments as to why the pricing is the way that it is. I think there's definitely many things play into this. Yes, Nintendo could do certain things and bring down the price if they wanted to, and even with all this instability, they could potentially do that for the consumer. Nintendo is definitely nickel and diming people when you look at the prices of games and all of that stuff. So that is definitely there, but it is obviously clear here that the tariffs are having an effect on how this console is releasing, pre-orders, pricing, all of those things, especially when you hear about the percentage of tariffs that are going on the countries where this console is being produced. So I think that the price that was originally announced, there was some tariff pricing cooked into that price a little bit. And then now with these other tariffs that have been announced, Nintendo is just saying they're going to wait here. They're going to wait. They're going to assess what does this mean for the production of the Switch 2. And then they're going to announce a pre-order date again for US customers. And I am guessing with a different price. Does that mean the price is going up? I do suspect that unless these tariffs are gone in the next little while. Maybe something is happening here and they're going to wait until the tariffs are off before they announce a pre-order date. But the Nintendo Switch 2 announcement and everything that has gone around with this is going to be notorious in years. We're going to talk about this. This is going to be huge. It's going to remind us, I think, of announcements and launches like the Xbox One, simply because of everything that is happening right now surrounding the Nintendo Switch 2, the tariffs, the economic and political state of the world that we are in right now. And as gamers, we get affected by this when we're seeing this stuff happen. And that's unfortunate. That's why we're going over all this now. But we will see. We'll see what happens when they're going to announce the pre-order date. What does this mean for the pricing? Will it go up? And if so, how much will it go up? And if it does go up, how does this affect the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2? Will there be significantly less sales now because of the pricing of this thing? Like if you think back to the OG Nintendo Switch, it launched at $300. And we're already up to $450 and $500 here with the Nintendo Switch 2. So that's already a big jump. And if more is going to be added on to that, that could have some reaching effects here as to just how successful this console does end up being, at least in the countries where these tariffs are taking a hit. In Japan, the price is very reasonable, so it'll still sell very well there. So we will see. Interesting times, though, to be a gamer when you're looking at all of this stuff happen around the world. Now, when it also comes to the screen, one of my complaints with the Switch 2, especially with the higher prices, that it is an LCD screen. No matter how Nintendo tries to sell this thing, Vivid LCD, I'm sure it will look great and it'll be a nice screen to play games on, but OLED will be better. And the OLED Switch screen will still be better than it. By how much? Won't know until we get it in our hands, because the Switch 2 does have a bigger screen, but Nintendo does explain why they went with an LCD screen. And then they give us some information here about the game download size, which is very good to see. I'm happy what we're seeing here with the game download sizes for the Switch 2, which was what I suspected here when they announced that there was going to be 256 gigabytes on board for this thing, was that these developers were going to be able to compress their games in a significant way here so that you can fit more games onto your Nintendo Switch 2. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. But here is what they say when it comes to the LCD technology and why they went with this screen. This was speaking to IGN. Tetsuya Sasaki, the general manager of the technology development division and senior director of the technology development department at Nintendo, explains, now there's a lot of advancements that have been made in LCD technology during the development. We took a look at the technology that was available to us now, and after a lot of consideration, we decided to stick to LCD. They say, in all honesty, many fans are simply convinced that Nintendo is waiting to release a more expensive OLED model a couple of years down the line. I would say, yeah, you can bet on that. That is going to happen. But if you look at the prices right now, again, if they would have went with OLED, this thing would have been even more expensive for them. And with how uncertain times are right now, this will help them keep the cost down, at least a little bit. Now, when it comes to the game sizes for Nintendo Switch 2 games, they are tiny. And honestly, as you come from Xbox and PlayStation and even PC, it's nice to have these smaller game sizes where you're not having to download 100 gigabytes every single time a game does release. But we have Mario Kart World at 23.4 gigabytes, Donkey Kong Bonanza at 10 gigabytes, the GameCube Nintendo Classics at 3.5 gigabytes. I mean, those are GameCube games. I think that's like double the size as to what they were when they actually launched on the Nintendo GameCube. So I wonder what additions are coming to those games. And then Super Mario Jamboree Switch 2 Edition, 7.7 gigabytes. And as we talked about yesterday with Cyberpunk 2077, I think it was 64 gigabytes, and that's the game and the expansion. So they've really taken these games and they've optimized them for the Switch 2, and they've compressed them greatly so that you're not filling up your entire console with one or two games. I saw an interesting comment as well, is that how quickly are these third-party developers able to optimize their games for the Nintendo Switch 2 when they were having issues, or some, very little. I always say this, you see the complaints out there. It is a vocal minority. 99.9% of the games that you release on the Series S are fine. But when you hear the development issues for these Xbox Series S, I wonder if we will see anything along those lines. When it comes to the Switch 2, my thought is no. And the other side is they do have the NVIDIA tech in there. They have DLSS. So this may really help them be able to compress and still provide those resolutions and frame rates and give you, they're saying 120 FPS in handheld and then a 60 FPS upscaled 4K of some sort on the TV. But yeah, it's interesting to see the file size. I think that's great. And I hope most games stay within the 64 gigabyte to the 20 gigabyte range or so. There'll be some that are bigger, but overall, it's kind of nice to not have to download the 100 gigabytes of games that you do see with some of the games that are coming out here on PlayStation, PC, and the Xbox. Now, when it comes to emulation, there's an interesting thing here, especially with backwards compatibility. There's that question is how hard is it to preserve games via backwards compatibility? And there is an article here saying that the Switch 2 emulation highlights future challenges for Xbox backwards compatibility. Specifically, this comes via Pure Xbox. And it says here that it seems that work has begun again on game preservation. Reports have stated that the new game preservation and forward capability team has been set up inside Xbox for the next generation. And I really hope that's true. And I hope that isn't just for Series X and S games, but also for 360 and Xbox One games. They say if we're looking at a Windows-based console and handheld that are in the works, trying to emulate console games for those devices might be a harder task than ever. And they also go on here to say that the Xbox backwards compatibility has been an amazing benefit to the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X and S. But we've seen this week Nintendo Switch 2 will be using emulation to run Switch 1 games, and the result is small but notable list of titles apparently still have issues running on the Switch 2. So they did put out this report here. And specifically, if you have a bunch of Nintendo Switch games, you should go check out this list because there are some games here that have compatibility issues, either not compatible or issues were found or game is playable with issues in certain parts of the game. So they did put out two PDFs here that you can go through and see if you own any of the games. I went through it. It's not too bad. I mean, most of the games that you're going to want to play via backwards compatibility are there, and I think most people will be okay. So the backwards compatibility stuff, even with these new gen consoles, even though they run similar architectures, there's still issues with certain games that just can't get there. That is going to be interesting going forward to see if there ever will be a time where it's just easier to get these backwards compatible games running without the issues themselves, and how will this affect obviously game preservation going forward. All right, let's talk some Xbox stuff here. We have information on the Oblivion Remake. We also have information on Xbox Game Pass. We'll start off here with the Oblivion Remake. We've heard a lot about this game. This is going to be another first-party Xbox game releasing in 2025. I think this one will be a hit. There's a lot of fans of Oblivion, and apparently it's coming very soon. Like, this game could be announced at any moment now. Maybe this will be in the next Xbox Game Pass announcement or something, or they'll just come out of nowhere and say that it is ready to be played. We have this news here from WCCF Tech saying that Nate the Hate, as he's been putting out a lot of insider information recently, responds to this tweet here saying, are we still saying this month in regards to the Oblivion Remake coming out? And he says, as things stand, yes. And this is not the first time that we have heard that Oblivion will be coming out in March. This was going to be one of those games added to the first half of the year in terms of Xbox first party games. And it'll be interesting to see what they do, though, because how are they going to announce this thing? That is my question. It doesn't seem like there's any direct coming up or partner show or whatever that they have from Xbox that is going to be happening this month. Nothing has been hinted at that. We have the June showcase, which is 2 months from now. And what are they going to do between now and then for an announcement for a game like this? Because I think this is a relatively big announcement. I think this is a relatively big game to just kind of throw out there with nothing surrounding it and no hype leading up to it. So hopefully there is some sort of marketing for it or some sort of explanation, showcase, or whatever you want to call it, that shows off this game, what we can expect from this remake and all of that stuff. But we will see. Either way, it's just going to be cool. You get to play it. the Oblivion Remake. I think a lot of people have wanted this. Is going to be Game Pass day one. And yeah, I will be adding this into the games that I want to play to my already insane backlogs. Because April, as I've said, Game Pass is insane. And I'm still playing Assassin's Creed Shadows. I put hundreds of hours. I put 100+ hours in Valhalla. I'm assuming I'll do that here with Shadows as well. I want to play South of Midnight. Now this potentially is dropping in April. So many things to play and talk about in terms of gaming so far in 2025. Now, when it comes to Game Pass, people always wonder, how successful is this? How much money is it making? Well, it looks like they've generated about $2 billion in annual revenue between 2019 and 2021. This was a post here found on Twitter by Timur222. It says here, old but interesting. And I'm sure these numbers have continued to improve over the last number of years, because this is, again, from 2019 to 2021, that Xbox Game Pass has made $2 billion a year in revenue from, like I said, 2019 to December 2021. The head of product of Xbox from those years put this out on LinkedIn, saying, as a manager, I led the creation and delivery of a contextual AI ML-based personalization service and a shopping experience that generated a new and growing revenue stream of $2.74 billion a year. And I started with a lean cross-functional team and expanded to manage multiple PMs across the company. I also drove the strategic growth to accelerate PC gaming growth via Game Pass. So this person here, the head of product with Game Pass, generated over $2 billion for those years. And you have to sit back and think about all of the discussions we hear about Game Pass being unsustainable. If it was making that much between 2019 and 2021, now with the titles that are in there, you have games like Call of Duty coming in. We've heard about the making the biggest gain in Game Pass from any game that's been put in there. I'm assuming it is doing far better than that at this point. We've heard that the analysts believe that 50 million Game Pass subscribers will be reached this year. And if that is, that's a big feat. And now we're in a time where prices are rising. Economy is obviously uncertain with everything that is happening. If you're a gamer of any sort, I mean, you can't not look at Game Pass at this point if you just want to be able to play things without having to spend $80 on a brand new video game, because Nintendo Switch 2 is implementing that. PlayStation and Xbox are going to follow at some point. Like, their games are going to go up to those prices. They're not just going to allow Nintendo to do that all by themselves, especially if people are still going out and buying the games themselves. Where Xbox has the advantage of the rising game prices is Game Pass, because even if their game prices go up to $80, that for them is probably just, they look at it as it incentivizes people to go and subscribe to Game Pass even more than they currently do. So at this point, the subscription services that people make fun of as renting games and all of this stuff, people are going to really start flocking more to that and looking at those as options rather than going and paying the exorbitant prices that will continue to go up as things in the economy continue to change and everything that happens throughout the years. All right, if you're a Deus Ex fan, there apparently is a new game that is being pitched here by Eidos Montreal, which is cool to see. I believe this was an IP that was involved at some point with the recent layoffs and everything, and a lot of people were skeptical as to whether this would come back, but it looks like it could be. They say here, while working on details regarding the recent layoffs at Montreal, Quebec-based studio, it was learned that the company had been actively pitching to external partners and publishers a new Deus Ex game, and according to multiple sources close to the studio's plans, Eidos Montreal is pitching the new game regularly, but it hasn't led to any commitments from publishers. One source said that there was a belief from a couple of possible partners that the series was too niche at this stage. Another said that it became clear after a few meetings that publishers aren't willing to take on the financial risk that comes with the Deus Ex franchise at the moment. So we don't have any real details about this game and what it is coming from or what it's going to be about and all that, but they're starting to pitch it. They say right here they want to bring it back, and they've been looking at ways to do so. So who knows? Will this game come back? We are, again, with everything that's happening, we're even more uncertain times than we were 2, 3, 4 months ago. And I think this just means less risks will be taken, especially with greenlighting the development of video games, because that was already happening. They're already being pretty conservative. We're seeing the remakes and the remasters. Developing costs were going through the roof. And now we're at a point where, with even more uncertainty, the chances are that games that won't guarantee a good profit from them and a nice profit margin to show to the investors and everything, chances that those get greenlit at this point, I think is becoming slimmer and slimmer. And finally, a game that originally was a Nintendo Switch exclusive before going over, I believe, to PC later on, was Daemon X Machina. They announced a new one at the Switch 2, and this one is coming over to all platforms on day one. So if you've ever want to play this series and you weren't able to, now you will be able to pretty much wherever you want to play it. This is saying here that Xbox is getting the sequel to one of Nintendo Switch's biggest cult mecha anime hits. And this will be releasing on Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC and Steam on September 5th, 2025. It is not a Nintendo Switch exclusive. I played the first one. I was okay with it. It wasn't my most favorite game in the world, but this one here looks cool. Looks like they did some nice upgrades. I will probably check it out. The question I have is, what is the price of this game? Will this be a higher price Switch game? I believe right now it is $70, but will that be the same price across all of the platforms, Xbox, PC, and PlayStation? I would assume so, but I mean, you never know when all the discrepancy between the prices of games here that we have been seeing. But I'm going to end the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video.